what I feel is happening is that there is an ongoing emotional unwinding happening in all of our systems on a moment-to-moment basis. The system innately wants to rid itself of the burden of unintegrated emotions. And what do I mean by unintegrated emotions? Well, we have all gone through a whole host of experiences in our lives. And as a result of these experiences, whether they were very positive or very challenging, we received messages around how we were to experience these things. So perhaps we were told that it wasn't okay to be angry, or perhaps we were distracted from sadness, or we felt maybe ignored or kind of cut off when we were feeling depressed. So there's all kinds of messaging, whether that's like obvious messaging, but it could also be just subtle things where people kind of split off from us energetically when we're feeling a particular way because they believe that feeling isn't okay, or they're not okay with it in themselves. And so what happens as we grow up and we receive all of these messages is that we begin to compartmentalize emotions as good and favorable, and I want to have, and bad, and I shouldn't be feeling, and I don't want to have. And so when the whole gamut of emotions, of course, we're going to feel them, all of them, throughout our life, because they actually are a form of intelligence. But when the ones we don't want to feel come in, we will either suppress them, we'll use our energy to try to push them away. But of course, because we're energy beings, they're still going to exist in our system, but just below the level of our consciousness. And we create a lot of constriction in our bodies to kind of compartmentalize the things we don't want to feel. We also create a lot of tension in our body trying to be happy, trying to create pleasant situations, trying to be joyful, trying to be loving. All of these sort of maybe what we call more positive feelings and emotions, we also can really kind of tie ourselves in knots trying to be something, and it actually becomes quite inauthentic. And so coming back into the body is very much a process of reclaiming the entirety of our emotional realm, of our emotional spectrum, reclaiming the entirety of our emotional spectrum. There's not one emotion that at some point along the awakening journey that is not going to visit you. And that might be hatred, it might be jealousy, it might be, well, anger or rage. Every single one of them is going to move its way from the dungeon in your body, slowly but surely to the top, to be liberated. Because all of the emotions that you suppress are actually sitting right on top of the light of your soul. So if the soul is in fact to rise like a sun rising, all of the things that have been suppressed are going to have to come before it to allow that rising to happen. And what I believe is that we don't have to look for the emotions. We don't have to try to make it happen, because it's a very natural process that's happening on an ongoing basis, that the system is continuously liberating itself from the burden of emotions in a way that is beyond what we could even imagine, meaning that there's an intelligence that just brings them forth one at a time. And I don't think it's so much things in our lives that cause us to feel certain ways. I think what happens is that a certain emotion is surfacing, and then we begin to look at things in our lives. We look at the things through the lens that is of the emotion that's coming up. So for example, if anger is one that my system is currently integrating and liberating, then perhaps I go through that day and I find there's a lot of things that are irritating me, maybe things that wouldn't normally irritate me. but oftentimes we'll blame it on the outside thing. I believe what's actually happening is that as an emotion is surfacing, it clouds our vision in a way, and we begin to see anxiety, we begin to see through anxiety, we begin to see through depression, we begin to see through whatever is moving through. As far as I can tell, this cannot be avoided in this process of awakening. And all of this is happening as sensory information in the body, right? So embodiment requires us to become progressively more available to the whole spectrum of emotions. And at the same time, we don't have to do it. If we bring consciousness to our lives, what will happen is that we will just find, again, as I was just saying, there's a certain kind of flavor of emotion that will begin to surface in our life that's just there. You can't miss it, especially if you take time to slow down. And that's the one that wants to be welcomed. So there's not a lot of doing or seeking or searching. It's really paying attention to what is arising right now. And I find that as I work with people as a soul coach, and I'm including myself in this as well, even people that have been doing this work for a long time and know well that all emotions are sacred, right? And yet at some point, something rises up, and for whatever reason, it's really hard to make space for it. Even though we know in the past we've done it with other emotions, and we know that there's liberation on the other side, but when they do surface in just this very natural way, like a bubbling to the top, there's so many mechanisms that have been put into place to keep that emotion suppressed, that they just click into high gear. And so it takes a lot of courage. It takes a really strong intention around being free. It takes a strong intention around meeting yourself as you are. And it often takes somebody to be sitting with you and to presence with you. And it often takes a community as well.